Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're looking at episode 8 of season 5 of Netflix's She-Ra. This episode picks up where the last one left off, with Etheria and her friends in space trying to get back to Etheria, but being stopped by a blockade, as well as what's left of the Princess Alliance on Etheria trying to figure out what to do next. Castaspella reappears in this episode, and I'm still really salty about how this character was handled in this series. We made a whole video about this, and we actually still get hate comments on that video, but we both still stand by what we said. Castaspella is treated terribly in this series, and it was so unnecessary, but we'll get more into it through the recap. The episode picks up with Adora and the others trying to reconnect with Etheria, but they can't get a signal through anymore, though Entrapta was able to find the blockade that Perfuma was talking about. Glimmer laments the fact that if she had her powers, she would be able to teleport them past the blockade, but she's totally cut off from magic because they're stuck in space. Adora insists that they're going home, regardless of whether they have magic or not, but Catra questions how they're going to get past the Armada, and if her plan is just to ram right through them. She says no, but then changes it to maybe. They do have a habit of just improvising their way through the war. They even made it a point back in the D&D episode in season 2. They do have She-Ra, who has been able to make quick work of these ships before, although there are a lot more of them this time. Catra challenges her on this though, saying that they're going to get caught, and she starts to shake. She probably knows that that might work with Hordak but not Horde Prime, but she says they should trust her because she's defeated them multiple times, so she would know that they can't just charge in without a plan. Adora pouts, saying that she didn't defeat them. Well, they did fail to stop her from activating the portal, mostly because they charged into the desert without a plan, but now's not really the time for this, which Bo points out, saying that Catra's right and they barely made it out the last time they engaged Horde Prime, so they're going to have to find another way. He asks Catra if Prime has any weaknesses. Catra says she doesn't know, but then Wrong Hordak shows up behind them and says that we don't discuss Horde Prime's weakness. Adora takes that to mean that there is a weakness they can exploit, which makes Wrong Hordak very uncomfortable, insisting that they don't discuss his weakness and it doesn't exist. But he does mention something called Critis. I still don't understand how he hasn't figured out they aren't with Horde Prime at this point. They've been working against him since the moment they met him. Anyway, Catra recognizes the name and tells them it's a planet. Critis is actually a reference to a place from the original show. Ironically, it was under the Horde's control, while the entire point of it here is that it's not under the Horde's control, and even that the Horde couldn't control it, but we'll get to that. Entrapta pulls up the information, but it's encrypted, so they need an administrator to access it. Adora tells Darla to take care of it, and the ship responds, so I guess it's counting her as an administrator even though she's not in her She-Ra form. It turns out Critis isn't far from their position, which is a bit convenient, but we'll go with it. Wrong Hordak is still insisting that Critis doesn't exist, but Catra shoots that down, saying she knows what she saw, and that Prime is hiding something from them, so they set course for the planet. They make it to the planet and it's a desolate wasteland, but there is evidence that Horde Prime was there. Catra's uneasy about this, but she's trying to hide it. Also, Catra's tail is outside of her spacesuit, which seems like a bad idea. I wish these spacesuits were a little more practical. Having parts of their bodies or their hair outside of the spacesuits makes me nervous. They find an access port that they can just plug Wrong Hordak into, hoping that he can find some information about the invasion. Entrapta is also able to find out that the atmosphere is safe to breathe so they can take their helmets off, but Catra's not comfortable and wants to keep hers on. This triggers the start of a running joke throughout this episode, where everyone keeps calling Catra cute and she gets mad about it. Bo says he would want to keep his helmet on too if it was as cute as hers, because of the cat ears, so she struggles to take it off while they laugh at her, but they're interrupted by Entrapta, because she's picked up a heat signature, which means that there's someone alive on this planet. Wrong Hordak insists that can't be possible because Horde Prime destroyed this whole planet, and it doesn't exist, so no one could be living on it. Give him time, he'll get there. But they decide to go try to find this person, which Catra isn't happy about, which is another running theme of this episode. She doesn't think searching through a structurally unsound building for a mystery person who may or may not be friendly and may or may not know how to defeat Horde Prime is a good idea, which arguably is a good point. But Bo argues that this is basically her plan because they were just gonna try to barge through the blockade until she said that they should try something else. So Glimmer and Bo tell her that this is her first mission, and then they grab her and start dancing around, which again she's annoyed at. It would be kind of cute, but she killed Glimmer's mom. Maybe the show's over that, but I'm not. Meanwhile, the rebellion camp on Etheria is completely devastated. DT isn't with them though. Maybe they let them go, but it's kind of weird for them to reintroduce DT and then do nothing with them. The rebellion hears rustling in the bushes and prepares themselves for a fight, but it turns out to be Castaspella. They check the back of her neck and discover that she's clean, and she's upset to see this is what's left of the rebellion, but I can't help but wonder where she's been all this time. I mean, she was probably defending Mysticor, but at the same time, I think the story would have benefited from her being here. Her long-lost brother, who's been presumed dead for years, shows up randomly, and there's an alien invasion. There's a lot of drama and opportunity for interesting storytelling here, but for some reason, this series has a habit of skipping over reunions. Perfuma says they have to move camp because the Horde knows they're there, but Castaspella is upset about them wanting to hide instead of fight them. Perfuma says it's just for the time being, to regroup, and thinks they might be able to hide in Mysticor since it has that invisibility spell. But then Shadow Weaver steps in, saying that now that the Horde has Micah, Mysticor is automatically compromised. Casta questions how they could lose so many people and yet Shadow Weaver is still around. But she lost her brother once and she won't let it happen again. I get that, but where has she been? It's episode 8. Anyway, Perfuma insists that they need to make sure the rebellion is okay first, before they deal with their brainwashed members. But Shadow Weaver says if she really wants to help Micah, she should follow her. Casta refuses for obvious reasons, but Shadow Weaver says that no one has a plan, but she does. Yeah, but no one ever has a plan on this show, so what's the difference? But Casta begrudgingly agrees, although she does threaten to strike her down if she pulls anything, but Shadow Weaver easily intimidates her. Casta has been established to be an inferior spellcaster compared to the others, which is ironic considering her name is Castaspella, yet she's not very good at magic, but I digress. Back in space, Adora and the others are looking for that heat signature Entrapta picked up on. Catra's still uncomfortable and something rushes by her, but she's the only one who notices. They come across a dead end. They tell Entrapta this over their earpieces, but she insists there should be a door there, and she insists that data never lies. But Wrong Hordak is still plugged into the system, and he finds information that Horde Prime fled this planet, which he starts to freak out about, because it doesn't go along with what he believes about Horde Prime. So Entrapta insists again that data never lies, but then tries to console him when she realizes he's crying. So Catra gets frustrated and claws her way through. I guess her claws are strong enough to go through metal. Bo says they don't really know what they're dealing with and maybe they shouldn't just smash things. But is this really all that different from their plan? I mean, they were giving Catra a hard time about being cautious before. Why start being cautious now? They come across a room with a lot of light particles in it, and Glimmer starts to sense something, but she can't really explain it. But she doesn't think it's good. They try to contact Entrapta, but she's busy dealing with Wrong Hordak because he's going through a crisis. Now that he's starting to understand that Horde Prime isn't who he believed he was. It's probably a good thing he never figured out that they were actually against him, since he probably would have turned on them, and probably wouldn't have listened to them if they tried to tell him the truth. So as painful as it is, this is probably the best for him. Entrapta tells him to move on to the next floor while she deals with this. Along the way, Bo accuses Catra of being cute again because she sneezed, which she gets really mad about and tries to tackle him, but she touches the wall and it starts to suck her in. The others have to pull her out, but then a bunch of spikes come out of the wall and they have to run for it, and then the scene ends really abruptly. It then cuts back to Etheria. Casta keeps getting snagged on things, while Shadow Weaver seems to be doing fine despite the fact that her outfit is also not practical for hiking. They start bickering, and Casta questions Shadow Weaver's plan, saying the only reason why she's following her is because she would be the one who knows mind control the best. But Shadow Weaver scoffs at this, saying mind control was never her thing, which to be fair, we've never seen her do that specifically. Instead, she's more about manipulation, but this just frustrates Casta more, so she turns back. However, Shadow Weaver reminds her that she's never been able to hold a candle to Micah when it comes to magic, and now that the Horde has him, they'll be much more difficult to stop. Plus, he could do irreparable damage to the world and himself. So she asks again about her plan, and Shadow Weaver just says that her plan is to get stronger. I still don't understand why they had to take two strong and well-established female characters and shove them aside for Micah. It's not like it was necessary. He had his own story that worked really well. They could have at least not nerfed Casta so much, or leave her as Queen of Mysticor, but it's just really weird that they would make this decision. And having Shadow Weaver tell Castaspella that she was never that good at magic really goes against everything that these characters stood for in the original. Back in space, Catra's upset about almost being eaten by a wall, but when everyone looks around, they realize they're back where they started. Entrapta tells them that the heat signature is nearby and they just have to go through the door to their left. Except she sounds suspiciously monotone, especially for her. She usually sounds much more animated. They didn't notice a door earlier and now they're surprised to see one there. Catra doesn't want to go through, but Adora says they should follow Entrapta's directions. They start down a long corridor, but it looks like they're not making any progress, no matter how much they walk. Entrapta comes back on in her usual animated self, saying that Wrong Hordak finished downloading all the information, and it turns out this planet was once a First One's colony, just like Etheria. The First Ones in the Horde were fighting for control of it, and the Horde actually won, but something on the planet drove them away away. Adora takes this to mean that they're on the right path, but they're still worried about not making any progress down this corridor, which confuses Entrapta because she didn't tell them to go that way, and then asks who their new friend is because it turns out there's another heat signature with them. But isn't it obvious that that's the heat signature they've been looking for this whole time? There's no other heat signature on this planet besides theirs. They turn around and there's this figure with them, and they all freak out, and Catra ends up tackling it, and the two of them teleport away. The creature then transforms into a cat-like being and starts growling at Catra, so the others rush to get to her, but they end up being stopped by those spikes from earlier. But Glimmer gets this feeling and decides to try something, so she touches the spike and it turns out they're just a bunch of illusions, which is a little anticlimactic, but it turns out she had been sensing the planet's magic, which means she can perform it now. The creature circles around Catra and threatens her, but then she sneezes. This causes the creature to take a more docile form, and it copies her sneeze. Meanwhile, Glimmer was able to open a portal so they could all get to her, only to find that she's already tamed the beast, which was pretty fast. The three of them comment about how cute it is that she's petting it, which upsets Catra again. Them constantly bringing up how cute Catra is just reminds me of all the war crimes she's committed, and it's really annoying. But Catra's screaming causes the creature to become more agitated. Adora tries to attack it, but Catra gets in the way. She apologizes for losing her temper, and claims to be working on it. Too little too late if you ask me, but that's just my opinion. She explains that the creature seems to respond to emotions, so they have to keep calm right now. Catra promises not to hurt the creature, so it lets her pet it again, but it shines brightly. But Catra sneezes again, so I'm starting to wonder if she's allergic to magic or something. Adora realizes that the creature is magic, and they bond over the fact that they're both magical. Adora even makes her eyes glow, so I guess she has a better control of She-Ra finally. It then starts growling and meowing, and Catra freaks out because she can hear it talking, but no one else can, including the audience. Bo speculates that it imprinted on her, and it must trust her somehow. Catra says that that's a mistake, and is having a hard time with this. I can't believe this thing imprinted on her just because she sneezed. They could have given her an actual test or something, make it a character development moment. Catra explains that its name is Milog. Milog was the name of a character from the original show. The thing is, Milog is just Gollum backwards, and in the original, Milog was a Gollum-like creature, so it fit with the naming theme that this show has, like Bo being an archer and Frosta having ice powers. But what does this creature have to do with golems? On top of that, it looks like it was inspired by Catra's original cat form, so why not name it after Claudine, Catra's lion companion? It ends up becoming her companion anyway, so that would have made more sense. Anyway, Catra explains that it's been here alone for a long time, and mistook them for more enemies. The first ones came to Critis and mined its magic, but they ended up taking too much, and then the Horde came. Prime tried to conquer the planet, but the magic was too wild and uncontrollable for him. Glimmer is happy to know that magic is Horde Prime's weakness, so they can use it to turn the tide of the invasion back home. Catra finishes off Milog's story by explaining that it drove Prime off, but in the end it couldn't defeat him fully, and now it's the last of its kind. Adora says she's sorry about what happened to Milog, but they're gonna make sure this never happens again, and offers to bring Milog with them, since Etheria also has magic, and it may be the last place in the universe that does, although how do they know that for sure? Anyway, Milog agrees, and Adora calls Entrapta to let her know they're on their way back. So now they have an advantage over Horde Prime, and on top of that, Wrong Hordak has finally come out of his depression, and is now ranting about how Horde Prime is a false ruler and needs to be taken down. So things are looking up, but Bo mentions the blockade between them and Etheria. However, this time Catra says that she has an idea about that. Back on Etheria, Casta and Shadow Weaver are still trekking through the woods. Casta gets fed up and starts accusing Shadow Weaver of not caring about Micah and only looking for more power, which sounds believable enough to me. But they come across a bunch of magical boars sleeping. Then Shadow Weaver starts teaching Casta about the history of Etheria, which is something I still find annoying. Casta shouldn't need Shadow Weaver of all people to teach her about Etheria. It would be like nerfing Wonder Woman and then having Cheetah teach her about the Amazons. I understand this is a different series and continuity, but of all the changes to make, why this? Anyway, Shadow Weaver explains that the first ones didn't enhance Etheria's magic with their tech, they actually stifled it. So her plan is to destroy the restraints the first ones built and set all that magic free. Then they can use it against Horde Prime, but Casta accuses her of just wanting to take that magic for herself. But Shadow Weaver says she just wants to save Micah, and asks Casta to help her defeat the Horde and also stop her if she does end up trying to take the magic for herself. They do end up shaking on it. Personally, I wouldn't trust her, but I guess if we're gonna forgive Catra so easily, Shadow Weaver can come too. Back Back in space, the group has made it back to Etheria, but they're coming up on the blockade. So Milog uses magic to cloak them, and they're able to zoom past the blockade. It works and they make it back to Etheria. They celebrate and Glimmer kisses Catra on the cheek, saying she saved the day. They really are not going to address the whole mom killing thing, are they? Well, that's awkward. But the episode ends with them all staring out at the planet, with Adora saying they're home. I mean, I would be concerned about the rebellion being mostly taken over, but we'll let them have their moment. So they've been in space for a few episodes and now they're back on Etheria, which means that things are happening, but I still think the pacing is off. For example, most of this episode was shenanigans with the best friend squad, and them commenting on how cute Catra is, but then rushed through the exposition and backstory. They also reintroduced Castaspella, and they're putting a lot of emphasis on her, Shadow Weaver, and Micah's relationship, but they haven't done enough to flesh out that relationship. There was one episode focusing on Micah and Shadow Weaver, but that was back in season 2, and then we haven't gotten anything now other than some bickering, even though their reunion should have been a big deal. And then Castaspella is just kind of here, after not being here for most of the series, and oftentimes when she is on screen she laments the loss of her brother, so shouldn't she have rushed over as soon as she found out he was back? I just think there's a lot of opportunities for character development and growth that they're just not taking. So it's nice that the story is progressing, but I wish that the pacing were better. So that's our take on the episode. What do you guys think? Do you like this version of Milog? Let us know in the comments below. Before we go, I want to give a shout out to @RealGreenMachine on Instagram for this cool piece of fan art. It's really cute and I like how dynamic and expressive it is. So thank you so much for the fan art. We'd also like to shout out our members: Caleb Nelson, Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, Taylor Ramirez, The Rabbit Mancer, Dash Hound, Haley Kosheva, Ray Thulu, and Hunter Rose. Thanks for watching, we really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content from us, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye everyone. Bye guys.